what we're going to talk about is how to promote community and student engagement through the use of online environment. So what we look at the online environment rather than as a negative, as a positive, and as a powerhouse where we can actually use the online environment to create the community. Okay, so I don't know what you know about Hostos, but I assume that Lehman and Bronx community have similar demographics. And basically, we have a very diverse pool of students, mostly from the two minority communities, the Hispanic and African American. And student engagement is extremely important for student success. So we find that there are a lot of barriers just already for our students inherently. Commuters, a lot of competing responsibilities. Employment, sometimes full-time employment, family obligations, and if they don't have the time on the campus, they're not going to have peer group or institutional interaction, and that's really going to cause a lack of student engagement, which will harm them. And then also because they are from the two minority communities of the Latino and the African American, there's also a kind of insularity in these communities, in a lot of minority communities, and basically between these two communities, kind of a mistrust. So basically that's going to add another layer, another barrier. The two largest minority groups at community colleges are Hispanics and African Americans, and they are the majority of the students at Hostos. And I just kind of put a little bit of the demographics here so you can see it. As I mentioned before, the minority groups are insular, they socialize with each other, and in New York City there's that residential segregation. So that's just going to be adding to it. And then they're going to adopt those group ideas. Okay. Another additional factor for Latinos and African Americans is a little bit of resistance for them, like misconceptions that they might have. So again, you can have another barrier, another way of dividing the students. And student engagement is absolutely a key to academic success. A lot of research on this. So they need to be more connected to the faculty, the institution, support, things like that, which they're not going to have if they're online. And these student engagement particularly benefits those who are not well prepared, our students. So, what are we talking about today? Online education. Online education at Hostos, we've had it for more than 15 years, but basically we started with a formal mentor program, which is wonderful, both for hybrid and for asynchronous. And we use often Blackboard, and so we have hybrid, which is about at least 1/3 up to 1/2 of the meetings, and then fully online. And I showed you how many, we've increased from 2012 to 2015. And so the total now is 157 courses. But as you spoke, what was your name again? Caitlin spoke about it being flexible. It's wonderful for the students to have online. They work, they have family obligations. It's phenomenal if they can have online because they have that flexibility. But then it's going to turn into a negative if they're not going to have the student engagement. So what we have to do is we have to have strategies to give them community. And I have a fully online course, which is an internship class, and I'm turning it now into a capstone class. And then Professors Trachman and Steinmayer are building a hybrid eco-feminist course. So I have two groups of strategies that create community. And the first are collaborative tools, blogs, Wordles, wikis, and the second group are discussion boards and grouping them into group assignments. So I use blogs, and basically a lot of the same things that Caitlin spoke about before. It allows the students to express their feelings, maybe they wouldn't if they were not in the classroom. and they could also share it with everybody. And also the research shows that it allows them to better link the meaning to the person. They can understand it better when they link it to their personal experience. And it's a little bit more informal a blog than is a discussion board. And also you can have, it comes, the way that it shows is all in one space, so they don't have to be clicking into things, and I like that a lot. So they can see the different answers that the students write when they click in. I tend to use blogs much more than discussion boards, but research shows that they do develop a strong sense of community, and this is an example. It's also something that you can use when something happens like instantly. I will put something on, I'm a law professor, so we were talking about the Miranda rights and when are the exceptions to the Miranda rights, and when the with the marathon bombers, with the Boston bombers, they did not give I don't know how to say his name, pronounce his name, the brother who was alive, they didn't give him his Miranda rights, and they said there was an exception to it, and so I asked the students to speak about it, what they think about that. And so it's something that, you know, the news, something happens in, I can instantly put it on, anytime. I don't have to wait for the class or, you know. And then another collaborative tool I use is a Wordle, and it's a word cloud. And so what I end up doing is I will maybe sometime at the beginning of the class, I'll ask them to give something about themselves, like a hobby or something. And so then I'll put it into a Wordle. They each give me a word, I put it into a Wordle, and I use it as their banner of their class. So every time they open up the class, they see the Wordle and they feel connected. And this is an example. Mother, karate, lawyer, president. Okay. And the other thing is a wiki, which they can all, it's okay, they don't mind. They can all work together to create something together. They all can edit it, and that also adds to group cohesion. And so I had a document where I had them in their paralegal class. They had to create a document where they would explain to the next class how to go about getting an internship, because we don't have that much help. So I and Career Services have to all work together to get an internship. So I had them write a letter to the next class explaining how to do it. My second group was group work, where they had a team project, a virtual team. So I gave them all the capabilities. I gave them email. I gave them discussion board. They could work completely online, but together as a group. And they could produce a PowerPoint, which I then put online. And so they had all these capabilities. They had collaboration, file exchange, a blog, discussion board. They could all do it. Only each group had it together. So they were exclusive to the groups. And then discussion boards, which I think we discussed before. And then also one other thing that I started was a Facebook page for the unit, which has been amazing. So we're posting everything that's been going on, and events and links, and that's also been wonderful for the students. And so all the professors are administrators, and we just add things, and it's wonderful for the students to see that. Thank you very much.
Will you click me through? I'm not a so we're going to talk about the activities and methods we're using in a course that we're designing, and it's a course in ecofeminism. And this is the overall structure of the tasks in the course. We'll talk about just the online portions, the graffiti board, the Wordles, I'm sorry, what? A blog. Wikis and blogs are down here. Wikis, blogs, and POOCs. We're aiming toward a POOC in the end, and we'll tell you what a POOC is. So the benefits to student learning, collaborative learning, especially with the blogs and the wikis, experiential learning, which will involve the cognitive mapping and the Wordles, and which will be put on graffiti boards, critical thinking, problem-solving skills, civic engagement. This is what we're hoping to encourage. The graffiti boards are really just like, you can post them on Blackboard, and they're really just like graffiti on the street. And the idea, and this is a sort of, I'm borrowing this from Paolo, and you'll forgive my pronunciation, Freire, the famous pedagogical theorist, The idea is that we want the students to be able to connect with their own experience, post their own experience on a site that they have, that's like their private site, in many media, so they'll also be learning about different ways to represent information. And then they can import the information from their graffiti boards to blogs, wikis, and Wordles, actually. Okay. So can you picture what I'm saying? The graffiti board is just like, and one of the great advantages is it will help them connect their daily life experience with the course material, and it also allows many forms of representation. Where did the rest of my slide go? Okay. Is the next one?
No,
Okay.
and allowing for abstract
Okay, here we go.
reasoning.
Okay, can you go to the next one? Okay.
Just
Okay. Yeah. Okay. And you form some examples: writing, prose, poems, words, parts of words, dramatic fonts like graffiti on the subway, or well, used to be on the subway. It's not anymore. And as it appears on the street. And they can also be images, hand-drawn, imported from web-based sources, stick figures, cartoons, maps, such as hand-drawn maps. And we're particularly interested in the students connecting their experience to the environment. I'm an environmental psychologist, so cognitive mapping is a recognized tool to help people understand their image and their experience of their environment. So these are some examples, a famous example of the use of cognitive mapping to represent the experience of place of 3 ethnic groups: Anglo-Saxon, African-American, and Hispanic. And that's worth a talk on its own, but we're a little stuck for time, so we're going to keep moving along. The Wordles, actually, one of the things that happened in working with Professor Ramson was that we created our own community and communication. And we liked the Wordles, but we didn't want to use, we wanted the graffiti board for what she was doing, but we thought the Wordles were neat. So we designed an assignment to use Wordles to address the course's emphasis on food justice. And we asked students to identify their customary foods, and the Wordle created a word cloud. So that you have a visual way of locating yourself in terms of, next slide. So this is an example that we pulled off of the internet of somebody who's trying to change her diet. And so she's using a word cloud to locate. Yes, oh my goodness. All right, I always change this person's gender. That's another time. All right, so this person is able to use this representation to understand the major foods that the person's using and how the relationship between different kinds of food is changing as they move along in their, she's trying to become a paleo, yeah, she's going on a paleo diet. Since the South Bronx is a recognized food desert, we wanted students to become aware of and reflect upon the origin of the foods that they use. This is a Wordle that represents a similar kind of an experience. And then we thought, next slide.
hang on, yeah.
Okay. And this is an example of cognitive maps that Professor Trachman, this is mine, this is hers, this other woman's mine, of resources in the environment from which we get our foods. So we would have these posted, and they would become what's part of the Wordle, and then part of the overall assignment, where we'd ask them to look at locations of food in their environment. Okay. It was quick, but I hope you got the basic idea. No, show me how to do it.
Okay, just keep hitting this.
Okay.
If you need to go back and just do
You
that.
got it.
Okay, so to some extent, my experience with this is a little more on the theoretical end, but it doesn't hurt for people to become a little more aware of some of the pedagogical advantages of the systems, and we've touched upon much of this already. So obviously, a blog is an electronic space, and students can share their experiences with fellow students, as can the professor. It's a writing space, as we already have identified, and one of the advantages is that you can post not just textual information on a blog, but you can post videos, podcasts, imagery, to use from prompts. We also, with the idea of sort of blending this and using information that the students might have developed for their graffiti boards and moving it into the blog as an appropriate prompt. And as you can see here, very nicely written, online gallery space for review of works, writings, and such in progress. It really encapsulates what a blog is about. these are immediately archived, so it provides an opportunity for students to reflect. And somebody brought that up about the discussion board. So this is doing it even in a broader sense because of the different types of posts. Hopefully they can also help to, because of reflection, clarify, information, from the material that was posted in the graffiti boards and also with text, course content, and allow for the back and forth reflection and thinking and also develop critical thinking skills. So that's sort of covered there. And it's sort of obvious because it allows the blog where you're putting a prompt there and asking for students to comment, and then it allows for students to comment on those comments as well as faculty to have exchange of information. So that last bullet sort of touches on that point. So let's move on. Okay, so we talked about personal postings and viewing and commenting. So it's sort of recapitulating some of this. And one of the things that ties back into the Wordle, with their food justice emphasis, the idea if we're asking the students about where the foods are coming from, we might be able to use, the posters from the graffiti board, even the Wordle itself, to have students then start really reflecting even deeper about where is the food coming from, what the environmental impacts are, how much energy does it take to deliver this food from across like California versus if it's grown locally, just to give you an idea of that. And some of this stuff is cut off on the bottom. Anyway, because we have a lot of students, a lot of rich diversity, it allows for the students to think about that. Help, you can read, discover unexpected commonalities because you can reflect on that. And it turns out in the literature they talk about how students feel more engaged in this form of communication, even more so than when they're using a discussion board. Okay, let me keep pushing forward. Why is this cut off? Can you possibly shrink?
What, did I do something?
No, we're gonna, because some of the stuff is cut off on the edge. Okay, and you can hopefully still read it. What's nice about a wiki, if we're using some of these different blog postings and reflections, to help to then eventually move them into working on a collaborative group project. One of the issues I have with collaborative group project, how do you assess what the students are doing and how they're participating? A wiki allows you to do that, and this is still on the theoretical end, but it really is marvelous because you can structure different tasks. You can have them breaking themselves up into different groups. They produce, as you can see here, jointly created artifacts and products. I'm trying to speed up a little bit more. Easily edited as a communication box, and history is created. They work on situations where they're looking at complex problems. Hit forward. Okay, as I said, blog postings and graffiti board information can be posted there. What's nice is instead of cooperative kinds of work where students are asked to put little pieces together and then sort of link them together, you actually can post something, and because the students can do commentary, they actually on the side can say, I need to change this because of this, that, or whatever, and then they can look back, and if something is an error, you can actually move back to whatever the original piece was. So it's much more of a flexibility, and you're much more like what people do with Google Docs or the tracking mechanism that we have in Word documents that I'm not terribly great at, but it allows for that kind of manipulation of the material and real collaboration moving forward. Yeah. As many of you know, wikis, they can be a series of pages linked together. It's more malleable. It's much more flexible. Terminology here is not hard-coded. It's easily to communicate back and forth amongst the students as well as the faculty member communicating with the students, because this faculty member is sort of over there on the side monitoring all this. There's a page history. As I already said, if there's an error, you can actually go back and move it back to whatever, before you had the error posted. As we know, wikis have an issue with that, where we tell students not to use wikis as reference material. But you can actually go back and fish out the correct information. Okay, and as I said, the faculty member can easily monitor. Hit the next slide. This gives you an idea of a Wordle, an idea of the richness of the kinds of postings moving forward. Allows you to consider it is just complex reading, and it's sort of repetitive. So let me see. This is an example of a wiki on climate change.
Sorry.
And here's POOC,
Yeah.
which is a participatory online open online course that CUNY has set in motion, which allows people who do online work to sort of communicate with one another via through the different CUNY campuses, as well as into the community itself. And
Researchers add to this.
And this is an example of the CUNY website.
And the little joke, and we're really out of time, so we'll end on this. It's Harvey because he was a puka, in case you're wondering what that was all about. Thank you very much.
It's not really weird, it's not really